Hey, how's it going, everyone? As you may or may not know, I'm currently working on my Bootstrap 5 course, so I did not prepare, a YouTube video this week. Terribly sorry about that, so I'm going to release a video from a course that I made, the Master Responsive Web Design course. This is a completely responsive website using HTML5, CSS3, animations, variables, and also a bit of JavaScript. I'm going to leave a coupon code link in the description below in order to make up for the missing video today. So I hope you enjoyed the project. I'm going to leave you with the project introduction, and sorry, I'm going to create a new project in the upcoming 2 weeks. So I'm still working hard on that course. So see you. Alright, it's time to get serious and create our first real life project. This project will be named Food to Go. We're going to take a mobile first approach to this and also use some variables. So let's first of all take a look at what exactly we're going to use in this website. As I said, our project name will be Food to Go. It will be a design of a website where you can order your food to go. And in order to achieve this, we're going to use the following technologies. We're going to use the CSS Variables. We're going to have a mobile first approach to this project. So we're going to build up the mobile first application, then we're going to scale up to tablet and then to desktop. It will also have a bit of JavaScript within it. So woo! Don't be afraid of JavaScript. It's nice. JavaScript is our friend. And this is just going to achieve two things. We're going to use JavaScript to achieve our navigation and, well, responsive navigation and a little bit of carousel for the orders. We will also use Font Awesome and we'll also use Google Fonts. So let's take a look at how this website works. We are currently in our desktop application. We'll have up here a navigation bar with some hover effects on the different items. And if we click on them, and this will get us to our designated sections. Down here we'll have our menu. Then we have our order section where we'll also have our carousel. So if we click on this, you can see the items are changing. You could also type in here a number. Let's say we want 100 something burgers. Then type in a minus. Ooh, don't want minus, we want 10 burgers. We're going to also have down here then a context section where we have, well, our contacts with a bit of a hover effects for our social icons and a message. Now this message will also have, actually I didn't use JavaScript for this. We're just going to use the required rule for each input. In our first, so let's say we will type in our name, Norbert T. We got a T, Reinhardt. And we will also be asked, hey, are you a customer from the restaurant or from the to-go? We will from to-go and we'll type something in. Thanks for your food. It's excellent. And submit. Now, if we are missing something, for example, our first name, and we want to submit, this won't work. We need to fill out all the fields. As soon as we fill this out, Norbert, and click on submit, now it's working and our page will refresh. Now, as I said, we have each of the items linked up in our navigation, each of the sections, and let's also go now to a tablet format. So let's click on inspect and let's change. We're in iPhone mode. Now let's start out with the phone version of the web page. As you can see, the navigation is gone and it's actually here. We have now a button. When I click on it, our navigation will have an animation effect. It will slide in from the left side of the screen and we can also navigate through each of our sections. Now we can close it up. And this is all done using a bit of JavaScript, really just a few lines of JavaScript, so don't even worry about it. Footer section down here just changed its colors. I actually wanted to have that as a variable for us. Now let's go to a tablet format and then we're going to go back to a responsive format. So as you can see, we have now everything aligned up in a column. But if we change it to a tablet, let's go iPad, and also different scales of fonts. Now this is very important. We're going to use variables to have our four main colors. We have one primary, one secondary color. As you can see, we have some dominating colors. We have the green color, which is dominating all over. This is the theme color. Then we have our white color, and then we have a dark color. But also we will use variables to assign different font sizes for each of our design. So if you're in a form format, we'll have a different design, a different font size. Let's go back to a form font. Okay, and when we're going to go completely responsive, so in a desktop mode, let's just stretch this out a bit. You see the navigation is already popping in, and also our font is changing. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the project introduction. Hope you're excited, so let's get started with our project. So see you soon. Alright, so let's get started by creating our basic setup. So just create an empty folder. I actually suggest to create a project folder first. In this project folder, we'll create another folder, which we will give it a project name, and this will be food to go. Now let's create our HTML. And also a boilerplate. Let's give the site a name, food to go. And up here, I'm going to start to link up our technologies. So first of all, I'm going to link up our CSS, which we don't have now. Actually, let's get first of all our kit from Font Awesome. So go to Font Awesome, copy your kit. If you don't have a Font Awesome account, create one. Or you could go to Google and search for Font Awesome CDN. That also works. And just copy in the CDN. So let's go back to our site and copy in our link. Okay, so this should link up Font Awesome for the icons. Next up, we're going to link up our CSS. So link and our style.css. Okay, now let's create our CSS. Style.css. Let's go into our CSS, and right in here, the first thing I'm going to do is import our Google fonts. So the first font we're going to need will be the permanent. Just type in here permanent. There we go. This has only one font weight, which is 400. So we're going to select this and select it as an import and copy the import from between the style tags. Take this, copy it in right here. And we also need to select, so let's go one back. We're actually using two fonts. We're also using the Oswald. And there we go. And I think I chosen the 200 font weight, so extra light. So let's click on this and let's copy in our 200. Okay, so we have this to set up. Now I'm going to do a basic reset, so star, comma before, and comma after. And within here, we're going to reset our margins, 0, padding 0, and box size in border box. And also right in here, I'm going to set the scroll behavior to smooth, and then comment it out, and only we're going to comment it back in when we're done with our project. Okay, another thing, the anchor tags, the list icons, we're all going to set them to have a text decoration of none, and also a list style of none. As usual, we want to style them ourselves, not let anything else interfere with our project. Okay, so that's it for our CSS for now. In our HTML, let's take a look. Did we forgot something? Nope, it's pretty much everything that we need in here. So yeah, we could get started with our project. So see you in the next one. In this video, we're going to continue on and first of all create our variables. So let's go into CSS, type in a comment, variables. And now, as I said, we need to target the root. Within the root, we're going to create variables for colors, for background colors, for font style, also for font styles, and for icons and font families. So let's start up by creating our first variables, which will be for the colors. So let's type in here comment, colors. And underneath of it, we're going to create, first of all, primary color. So I'm going to use prime, T, and color, because this is also going to be used as a primary text color. Now this color will be, as I said, our main color, which is this, go to our finished project, this green one, light green. So let's go back into our CSS, let's use hash, a hexadecimal number, and 078A-D91. This will be our primary color. After primary color, we'll have our secondary colors, another hyphen, secondary text and underscore color. This will be just a white color, so hash FFF. After that, we have our logo color. Logo. And this time I'm going to use for a variable another variable. So I'm going to use the primary color as a color for the logos. So for a variable, actually using a variable. Now this is because let's say that a client changes his mind about the most representative color from the website, which is the primary color, and he also wants the logo colors. I'm just giving you an example. And also the logo colors are the colors which we use as a primary color. So when you're going to change this one, the logo color will also change. Okay, and we're also going to create another color for the title color. And color. Okay, I'm going to use here the secondary color. Now next I'm going to create our background colors. So background colors. Underneath of this, we're going to create a dark background variable, dark bg and underscore color. I'm going to use a hash 111, so this is a pretty dark color. Underneath of this will be only the 000, but I don't want it to be completely black. Then I'm going to use a primary background color. BG and color. And for this we're going to use a hash 333, so much lighter dark color, and a secondary background color. Which will be actually a light gray, so hash 808080. Okay, we're all done with our background colors. Now next up we're going to create some icon colors, but actually we're only going to create one color. Because for this specific website, we don't want to have a Facebook color, Instagram color, a Twitter color. We just want to have a primary color which all of the icons will have, which will also be, let's just quickly create this, a primary icon color. So prime icon and color, which will be the primary color. Primary text color. Okay, so we have this out of the way. Next up, we're going to create variables for our font sizes. Because when we're going to scale up from a mobile to a tablet device, the scale should automatically change. And we need to set for ourselves some preset scales. So for this specific format, this will be our scale, our font size. If we increase our format, then the next one will be our font size. And if we increase further for a desktop version, then that will be our font size. So let's start up with having a comment of font styles. Underneath our font styles, we're going to create another comment for font sizes. Okay, so let's start up with our first font size of font dash size hyphen size and underscore XL. So this will be the extra large, which will be 3.5 rem. Next up, we will have font size. Actually, this should have been, oh, let me copy this. I made a small mistake. This is actually the font size for the title. And this will be the XL font size, which will be 2.5. Now I'm going to also copy this 2 more times. Next up will be the MD, so medium font size, which will be 1.3 rem. And then the SM, which will be the small font size. And this will be just 0.8 rem. Okay, so that's pretty much it for font sizes. Next up, we're going to create our variables for our font families. Now, why do I want this? Let's say the client changes his mind about the font family, but you will see that we have specific areas where the font families are representative. So in order for them to be changed easily, we're going to use variables. Now, first font family, I'll also type in a comment. And let me scroll up a bit. Our first font family will be for the title. So let's type in here variable -- font dash family and underscore title. Now you remember that imported font family of permanent plus marker. Now this is the font family that we're going to use for the title. So I'm going to copy this and type it in here, delete this plus sign, make a space, and put everything between quotations. So if you select a few words and just click on quotations, this will automatically be quotated. Now also we need here a comma and curves. I'm sorry, cursive. Okay, close this up. So there's a font family for our title. Next up, we need a font family for subtitles. Believe me, this could change, and sometimes the client wishes to change this. So font family for subtitles. Actually, I want to have here a hyphen. And I'm going to use here the same font family that we use for our titles. So I'm going to type in font family and not font size, font family. Title. Okay. Next up, I'm going to have a regular font family. So the font family that we're going to automatically use each time we create something in our web page. So let's create a font family underscore regular. And this will be our second font family that we imported up here, the Oswald. So let's copy the word Oswald, put it between quotations, Oswald and comma sans serif. Close this up, hit save, and there should be double quotes. Okay, we seem to have an error somewhere. So let me just quickly, oh, didn't close them up. So this one, this one, this one, this one. Sorry about that. And yeah, that's pretty much it for our variables. Now, really quickly, I want to do something, and I want to actually target our body and assign it the font family. I'm going to now use those variables. So the font family of var font family regular so each time we're going to create something in our body, we're going to have this as our default font family, the regular font. We're going to also give the entire body a much larger letter spacing, actually not much larger, but 1 pixel. So this should be automatically 1 pixel. I'm also going to set the automatic background color, which will be the dark background color. And each time we're going to type in a text, it should have a color of the secondary text color. Okay, so that's pretty much it for our variables and our setup. So, let's get started with our next video. In this video, we're going to work on our utility classes. Now, if you never heard or used a utility class, let me just explain it to you as following. A utility class is a predefined class which has specific properties and values which should not be changed throughout the project. Now you saw that we use, for example, from Font Awesome some classes like a FAA, or a FAS, or FA-Facebook. That is a specific class which will give an element some specific properties. Now, if you ever use Bootstrap or Tailwind CSS or any kind of CSS framework, they are constantly using those types of classes. So we can also create our own ones. For example, the most common class that we will going to be using is a button class. By creating this class, by creating this btn class, so we haven't applied it anywhere within our HTML, but we're going to predefine it, and each time we're going to use this class, a button will never have borders. So we'll set all of the borders to none. It will never have a outline. So outlines none. The background color of a button will always have a primary text color, and the color within the button will always have a secondary text color. It will also have a border radius of 5 rem, and it will have an internal padding of 0.5 top and bottom and 1 rem left and right. And also, when we go over a button, the cursor should always be pointer. So as soon as we apply this class to any kind of element, these properties will already be predefined. Now we can then fine-tune our button, but I would suggest that you then create another class for it and never touch this btn class. Also, when we have a class of btn and it is under active, so we click on it, we want the following transformation to happen, and we want it to scale to 0.95% of its initial size. Now I also want to create a predefined class for icons. So dot icon, and we'll just set the color for icon to the primary color, primary icon color. Now there are two more classes that I want to create. And of course you can create as many classes as you wish. And now, as always, I would suggest that you take this project, save it, make a copy of it, and just create it from scratch for as you would imagine it. Now let's create another predefined class, another utility class of text title. So whenever we're going to use this class, the font size will be of font size title. Its font family will have a font family of title. The color of the text will be the title color. The text will always be aligned to the center, and it will also have a text shadow of, let's say, 5 pixels, 5 pixels, 3 pixels, and black. So completely black. Now we can do the same thing for our text subtitles. Let me just copy this. Only one time, don't need it 2 times. Now let's insert here a subtitle, underscore subtitle, and this will have a font family of subtitle. Let's change this to subtitle. The font weight of the, let's just type in font weight. I want the font size. Sorry about that. So font size. Okay, the font size of it will be XL. The color will be primary color, primary text color. It will have a text line to the center. I will change its font weight to 100. And I want it to have a margin from the top and bottom of 3 rem. free rem and 0 left and right. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Actually, I wanted to have a bit of a less of text shadow, so let's say free and free and free. Okay, so as soon as we use this, and also let's use it, let's create our very first tag, which will be in a header. Within our header, we're going to have our title. Now I'm going to create this here, but I'm going to change it later on. But just want to show you that if we create an h1 with a class of text title, and let's type in here your food. Now let's open up with using live server, and let's see. There's our web page. All right. We just need to text title h1 text title. Am I missing something here? Oh, I didn't put the body as auto because I'm going to do this a bit later on. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so there's our h1 with a class of text title, which has a font family of title, font size of title, color of the title color, alignment to the center. You can see it's aligned to the center, and it also has a text shadow. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this video. Catch you in the next one. In this video, we're going to create and style our header section. So for this, we're just going to go back to our HTML, and right within our header section, we'll create above our h1 a div tag. We'll give this div tag a class of bg-img image. Now this div will just contain the image, and it will do nothing else. Now our h1 down here, I don't want to leave it this way. I want to actually pack it into a overlay class. So I'm going to create another div, class of overlay, and paste this h1 right in here. So cut it out and paste it in here. Now within here, where we have our your food, I'm going to create a span tag. So right after our food, let's create a span tag, and this span tag will contain the to go. And we're doing this in order to be able to later on style only this part of our title. Now right underneath our h1, we're going to create a button. So we're going to create a button tag, then dot, and I'm going to give it the class of btn. Within this class, we're going to also include an anchor tag and hit enter. Now the anchor tag will leave us to a ID of order. So let's type in orders, actually. Orders, and we'll also type it in the anchor tag order now. And now. Okay, now let's hit save and let's go to our HTML, to our web page. Now let's click on refresh, and hey, there we go. We already have our button. Although we didn't do any styling for it, we already have it because we used our utility class. Now I said that this will be a mobile first approach, so I'm going to take this and snap it into our code right here. And also make it a bit smaller. Click on inspect, and I'm going to put this down and change this to a mobile format. Okay, there we go. I'm also going to just increase it a bit, so I hope you can see this better. Okay, let's make it smaller, and there's our phone. Now we have our header finished. That's all the HTML we need for our header. Now we can go into our CSS, and down here I'm going to type in a comment of header. Let me also check up here if okay, I didn't do this. So right before our btn class, you type in a comment of utility classes. What I like to do is also end my comments. So right down here will be the end of it. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing for a header. So So Control Command C or Control C on a PC and end. Now between these two comments, let's start styling our header. We'll first start with our header tag and we'll position it relative because I want to position some elements as absolute within this. In order to do this, we need to have the parent container positioned as relative. So we will start off with our class of bg image. We have set is just a container which will contain our image. Now we're going to use the background property, and for the value, we're going to set a URL to an unsplashed image. So I'm going to just copy this, paste it in here. And this is https source.unsplash.com/KWZKHQSU B and K. Now in order to have our image positioned correctly, we will use center, then /cover, this is just a shorthand for it, and no repeat. Okay, let's hit save. And let's also give our image a height and a width. And for the height, we're going to choose the height of the entire screen. So we're going to use 100 viewport height. And for the width, it should occupy 100% of its width of its container. Okay, and hey, there we go. There's our image. Now I'm going to select the class of overlay that we created. And we're going to position this absolute within our container. So position absolute. And now we'll position it to the top corner of our container, which is up here. And we're going to use now top 0 and left 0. For the height and width, we're going to use, we want to cover the entire height of our container. So we're going to use again 100 viewport heights. And for the width, we're going to use 100%. Now, please remember, we are now styling this class right here. This class is a div which contains a title and a button. Okay, so we want to have this end result. But this right here also contains a color. You can see that our image is much brighter here than in the finished project. And this is because I used a background color. So on this overlay, use the background color of RGBA 000 for the blues also, and for the alpha we're going to use 0.65. And as soon as I hit save, you can see the image is much darker. Now you can obviously go with a much lighter image using a 55 for example, or much darker with 75, but I'm going to stick with 65. Now everything that is within this container will be displayed as flags, so both the H1 and the button. So yes, use display flags. And because flags is in a row, automatically you'll use for the flags direction the column direction. Now we can justify the content to the center and also align the items to the center. And hey, there we go. Now 3 more things we need to do. First of all, we will select from the overlay class. So I'm going to be really specific here. From the overlay class, I'm going to select my H1, and within the H1, I'm going to select the span tag. And I said we are going to use the span tag in order to change some colors. So I'm going to change the color from what is inside of the span tag to the primary color. And now our to go just changed to the primary color. And as I said, because we used the class of title, both of them have also a shadow. Now within the overlay class, we're going to select our class of btn. So only the button which is in the overlay class will be now selected. I'm going to give it a margin from the top of 3 rem. This will push our button a bit more further down. And I'm also going to change its font size to the font size MD. Now obviously this is not the color that we want for our button right here, so let's change it to white by selecting our overlay within the class of btn, and within the class of btn we're going to select our anchor tag. And we're just going to now change its color to the secondary text color. And hey, there we go. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the header. In this video, we'll create our navigation. So let's go back into our HTML and create a nav tag with the ID of nav and a class of navigation. Within our nav tag, we will have three elements. One will be a div with a class of logo, which will also have that text of to go. After that, we will have our navigation list, which will be a unordered list with a class of nav list and also another class of phone of nav-phone and underscore inactive. Now I'm creating the second class for the phone in order to grab onto it in our JavaScript. Okay, now that we have our unordered list created, it's time to create our list items. And each list item will be a li, which will include a anchor tag. This anchor tag will have a class, which will be a nav link. And each of them will go somewhere. So I'm going to use the hash for now. And I'm actually going to copy this 4 more times. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. Now the first one will go to home. So let's go to our first hash, hold down Alt or Option on the Mac, and let's type in here comment, or let's type in here actually the title of home. Then the second one will be menu. The third one will be orders. And the last one will be contact. Okay, now after our list items, we're going to create another div, the class of nav socials. Nav social. And this div will contain our social icons. So let's create an icon tag, and we'll use now font awesome, so we'll give it a class of FAB, and then dot FA and Facebook. And another class, so another dot of icon. You can remember that we created our utility class of icon, which will automatically give it a color. So let's do this. Now let's copy this 3 more times and replace the second one in Instagram, then Twitter, and let's say Pinterest. Okay, let's hit save, and there we go. There are our icons, and also they already have the colors. Now after our unordered list, we'll create our navigation button. So let's use a button tag, which will also have an ID of nav-btn, nav-btn. And we are giving this the ID of nav-btn because I want to grab onto it in our JavaScript. And this will be the button that will activate our list right here. And I'm also going to use now a class of btn in order to have the oldest properties from the btn class. And as I said, another class of btn nav, which should be a dot, btn hyphen nav, which we'll use in order to give it a bit of more styling. Okay, let's hit enter. Let's go down here because we're not finished with this. I also want to use an icon from Font Awesome, so I dot FAS, then another class of FA and hyphen bars. Hit enter, and there we go. There's our navigation button. Okay, now let's style this. Let's go into our CSS. First of all, let's create a comment again of navigation. Let's copy it, and also navigation end. Okay, first things first, we're going to grab onto the class of navigation. And this time, I'm going to display it flex. Hit save. Now everything flexes in a row. Don't forget, these are our three elements that are in the navigation container: the logo, the list, and the button. Okay, I'm going to also position this fixed. Now, when we are positioning something fixed, it can no longer be moved. Now, this is hidden because we have our header with 100% viewport height. So in order to see our navigation again, we're going to use the Z index of 3. So it will be over our overlay. Now, the positioning fixed of our navigation will help us when we scroll down. The navigation will remain up here. Now, let's also change its background color to a RGBA of just 0.9. I want to be just a bit of, to have just a bit of opacity. Okay, let's give it a width of 100% and a height of only 50 pixels. And also, let's give it a padding from the top. So let's push it just a bit down. So padding top, and let's go with 0.5 rem. Now, in order to have space between our elements, we're going to use justify content and space between, because we only want to have just type in space around, because we only want to have space between our items, not to the left and right. So between. Okay, now that's pretty much it for this part. Now let's grab onto our logo. So we'll select the class of logo. And first of all, let's change its color. So let's go with color. And as you can remember, we created up here. Did I create one? Didn't create one. Could have automatically give it. Let's create one logo. I'm going to give it the color of logo. Okay, there we go. Now don't forget that our logo color is actually the primary color, so if we would change the color, let's actually do that, but we can always Control Z. Let's change, let's copy this. Comment the first one out and let's change it to red. Okay, and everywhere where we had this primary color, you can see how easily you can change now those colors. Now obviously we don't want this, and we can comment this back in. So let's go back to our logo class. We don't need this color setting anymore, but what we do need is a font family, and we're going to use the font family of title. So let's type in title, and there we go, font family title. Now for the font size, I want to increase this font size a bit. We're going to use the XL. So if I type in XL, use font size XL, there we go, there's our logo. Now let's also change its background color. Typing in background color. And if I would use our logo color, then, well, we can't see our logo title anymore. What we can do down here is change its color again to secondary color. Okay, so what's the purpose of this? Why did I give it up there a color? Because you can play around with this. If you want to just change them up, then you can either go into your logo and change the color, or you can change it down here. Now let's give this a bit of padding from the left and right. So let's just type in padding, top and bottom 0, and left and right 1 rem. And also let's give it a margin from the left of 0.5 rem in order to push it a bit to the left of the page. We have the equal amount of margin up here as down here to the left. Okay, now let's grab onto the second class from the navigation button, which was the btn-nav. Let's increase our button size by typing height 40 pixels and a width of also 40 pixels. Now in order to push our button a bit to the right, we're going to give it a margin from the right of 0.8 rem. Now let's select our navigation list. So navigation list. We're going to position this first of all absolute. We're going to change its background color to RGBA, and for the alpha we're going to go with 0A. We're going to change the border to a completely dark color, so let's go with black. I'm going to give it a height of 100 viewport heights. Not only this, we're also going to change its width to 80 viewport widths. Now if I hit save, see there's our navigation now. Now let's display everything as flex. So let's go with display flex. And change the flex direction to a column first of all. Let's hit save, and we can now give it also a bit of padding. From the left 1 rem, and from the top 2 rem. Okay, next up we're going to take care of our list items. So let's select the class of nav-list. And within this, we're going to select our list items, so li tags. Now I'm going to give them a width of 100% because I want them to have the entire width of their container. We're going to span until here. Now in order to have this, let me show you, let's go back to inspect. Let's select our navigation. In order to have this green border down here, we're going to use border bottom. So let's type in border and button. I'm going to give this a border to the bottom of 1 pixel, solid, and the color of primary color. Now I still want to have a bit of a padding between the item itself and its border. So let's go with 0.5, top and bottom, and 0 to left and right. Now in order to have more space between our elements, we could give them a margin to the top and bottom of 1 rem and left and right 0. This will increase the distance between our items. Okay, now we took care of our list items right here. Now let's also take care of the nav links. So let's go underneath our nav link, our nav list, and let's target the class of nav link. Now let's first of all change that color to the secondary text color. Okay, now we have our white nav links, and let's give them a text shadow of 1 pixel, 2 pixels, 1 pixel, and a primary color. And primary text color. Okay, let's also increase their font size because they're obviously way too small. So font size, and we'll choose our MD font size. Medium font size. Let's hit save. You can see they're already larger. Now, a couple of things. We need to also give them an overall margin of 1 rem. So I can push them a bit further to the right. And let's also transform them to uppercase. So text transform to uppercase. Now this just depends on you, but I like my navigation with real bold font. So I'm going to choose here font weight of 900 and also letter spacing of 2 pixels. Let's hit save and there we go. Okay, the last thing I want to do is style our nav social. So our social icons down here, which we gave a nav, a class of nav and social. Now obviously they are far too small, so let's increase the font size to, let's say, XL. Font size XL. Let's also display them as flex. And let's push them down to the center so we could use margin. Now it depends on how high your display is, but I will go now with 25 viewport heights. So push them down there or almost to the center. In order to have more space between them, I'm going to use justify content and space evenly. Okay, so there we go. Now that's pretty much it for our navigation. Next up, we need to make it responsive. So see you in the next one. We're going to make our navigation right here responsive. So let's go to our finished project. And what we're trying to achieve is by when we click on this, or when we tap on it, the navigation should appear. And when we click on it again, it should disappear. Also take a look at the button. After we clicked on it, the bars change to an X. Okay, so this will just signify the closing button. Now, there are two things happening here. First of all, there's a click event. The browser, down here, the browser is listening for a click. When this click happens, something happens. In our case, the menu appears. When this click happens again, the menu disappears. Also, when the first click happens on the bars disappear and the X appears. When the second click happens on the X disappears. So actually, this is what we're trying to achieve using JavaScript. Now let's get back to our project. And I know most of you do not use JavaScript, never use JavaScript, but just think about it. There's no way not using JavaScript. Sooner or later, you will interact with JavaScript. Okay, so let's take it step by step. But first of all, creating a new file. So we have our HTML, we have our CSS. Now we're going to create a JavaScript file. So just create a new file, save it, and as soon as you do, let's call this nav dot. And as we have HTML for a HTML file, CSS for a CSS file, you have a JS for a JavaScript file. Now, as soon as we do this, we could do something like, first of all, go down here. So you need to have this part open. Actually, I'm going to make this, resize it a bit. So you are going to be on left side. Yeah, let's say on the left side. We're going to now open up this arrows right here. Instead of the elements, we don't want to see our elements. We want to see the console. Okay. And let me also zoom in a bit. So this is what we want to see, the console. Now the console is the built-in engine for the web page. In our case, we are using Google Chrome. And if we, for example, type in here console.log hi and we enter, this will be executed. So what is in this console.log hi, the execution is the string of hi. Now, the console is exactly what you see right here. This is the console. So when we typed in console.log, so log what we are typing, and what we are typing is in here between quotations. Exactly what is within the quotations will be executed. Now, this is not that important, but just wanted to show you where this console exists. Now, if I would do, for example, something like alert, which is another installed functionality in JavaScript, and within parentheses, I will alert the string of danger. Close it up. You will see a alert of danger. Okay, let's click on OK. Now, when we want to use JavaScript, we could actually go to our HTML, go down to the bottom of the page. Before the body, there are two ways to include JavaScript. We could actually type in here JavaScript. So if I would do a console log of hello, execute it, you'll see hello is executed within this browser. Okay, the live server is sending the information to the browser. Now the same thing, this console log dot hello, we could also do by typing it in our file. Console.log string hello. Now if I would hit save and actually go back to our HTML and comment this hello out, and let's say this is hello to you, what do you think will happen if I hit save? Well, nothing, because this file, exactly like a CSS file, needs to be linked up with our main HTML. Now the way we do this is by typing the script tag again and giving it the source. In our case, the source is that nav.js file that we just created. Exactly when we're using CSS, but this time the source is a JavaScript file. So we just type in script, let me make this a bit smaller, script, then for the source, nav.js and closing script tag. As you can see, this hello to you is already executed. Let's also put in here a comma, hello to you, and exclamation mark, hit save, and there we go. Okay, so we know that we have variables in CSS. There are our variables. We called upon the root, and we gave the variable a name and a value. Now JavaScript also has variables. Earlier for 2006, there was var. When using the var keyword, it is awaiting a name. Let's say variable my var. And we can assign it now a value. By typing in the equal sign, it means that we are assigning a value. The triple equal sign means that it's equal the value and the type. But don't worry about this for now. So let's start out with var. Var was, well, let's just say var is a bit complicated and I wouldn't suggest using it anymore. If I do a var of a string, Norbert, hit save, I can now use console log, and let's say I'm going to console log my var. And as I hit save, you see Norbert appears. Now, enough with this console log. Let's use the variables that I used nowadays. That is let and const. The difference between these two is that let can be redefined and const cannot be redefined. And it also has something to do with the scope. But I won't go into details right now. Just know that const will be used when we want something to be defined or we want something to be assigned that will never change. For example, in our case, our nav list. Nav list, and this is just the name of the variable that we just created. Now we need to assign it a value. Now this right here, our HTML, is actually the document, and we have a few properties for the document. We can now hit dot. You see these are all the attribute node, blah 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 blah. What we want to do is select something specific from the document, and we can select things by using get element by ID, get elements by class name, but there's also, since there's ES6, which is ECMAScript 2016, there is something called query selector. Now with the query selector, we could select everything exactly like you would select in CSS. So for example, within parentheses, if I would now want to select, let's go back to our HTML, this nav right here, the ID of nav, if I want to select it in our CSS, then I would do hash nav and then give it some properties. Now exactly the same thing is with query selector. You would just go in here and between quotations you would say hash nav. Now I just assigned the value. Wait a second, let is not defined. I know. I'm just going to delete everything here. I'm just going to assign the value for the nav list. For this variable, nav list will have the ID of nav. Now, as soon as I would call upon, just type in console log nav list, and I'm missing a T here. So nav list, and hey, what do you know? There's our nav list. Everything that is in the nav list, I can now take a look at it. And if I go through it, it's like being in the Elements tab. So I could do changes to it. Now let's say I want to select also the UL. So still remaining within our nav ID, I would now hit space, and I only want actually to be selected the UL. So let's hit save. Now you can see we're only selecting the UL. Okay, so this is pretty easy. We just selected something from the DOM, the document object model. Now let's also select, let's make this a bit smaller. Let's also select our button right here. So we go back into our HTML, and down here within the nav tag, we head off with our class of btn, and we also had the class of btn nav. Now let's select this. So what do you think we should do? Now, first of all, let's create another variable, const. It will be something that will never change. Now let's give it a name. Let's say nav btn. Now we're going to go to the document again. I'm going to use query selector. So what do you think? How do you think we should select our class? Exactly as in CSS. Dot nav btn dash btn. What was it? btn nav? Wait just a second there. btn nav. Oopsie. Okay. This was btn dash nav. Okay, so let's see, did we select the right thing? Let's now, instead of nav list, console log our nav btn. Hit enter, and if I hover over it, there we go. There's our nav btn selected. Now let's go and do something with this button. Let's say when we, so let's select our button nav btn. Now we can do things with it. We could say that dot add event listener. So we're adding an event. When something happens, like for example, open and close parenthesis, a click happens. Going to go outside the quotations, comma, something else should happen. Now this something else should be a functionality. So I'm going to type in function, open and close parenthesis, open and close camel case, and let's say when I click on the nav button, the UL should be console logged. So I'm going to take this console log out, paste it in here, paste it in here, and replace it with nav list. Now let's try this out. So if I click on this button, then the navigation list should appear here in our console. So let's try this out. Clicked on it, hey, there's a console. If I click on it again, it appears again and again and again and again and again. And if I want to clear the console, I just need to click on this clear console. Okay, that's pretty cool. So what else can we do except in console log? Well, you can change things. For example, I could change the way this navigation behaves. Or I can, for example, hide it. Let me take this nav and say dot style dot display is equal to none. Let's hit save. Now if I would click on the navigation button, it will hide my unordered list, my navigation. If I click on it again, it won't show it, but okay, this console log is still in here. Because this is only one time executed, so if I hit save again everything refreshes and our navigation is back. But if I click on it, the navigation disappears. And this is because our DOM has now changed something. Our DOM has just sent a information to the navigation list, a style information. So it actually created a CSS for it, and it created a display. So it's actually like typing in the same thing. So let me just hit a refresh. Also here on the page, let's say, so we had that the ID of nav display none. If I would hit save here, then our navigation is gone. But in our case, I just hit the UL. Okay, so let me delete this, save it again. There's a navigation, it's back. Okay, now let's think about it. We don't just want to click and hide it, but also want to make it appear again. So we need some kind of conditions. When does it appear? When does it disappear? Now you know that we have a class for our navigation. We gave it a UL, make this a bit smaller. We gave it this nav phone inactive. So within this inactive format, as long as this class exists, something should happen. Now let's take this class, go into our JS. I'm going to comment this one out. Now I'm going to create a if statement. So if, within parentheses, you have to tell it if what? If our nav list dot class list, so it's going to look at its classes, dot contains. So we're going to search if something is contained. And what should be contained? The nav phone inactive class. And this should be actually between quotations. Then, camel case again, something should happen. And let's say console log object. So when I click on this, it's going to look if this class, if the navigation has a class in its class list contained this nav inactive class. So let's click on it, and if it does, it should say object. Okay? Let's click on it and a object. So this means it has it. Now, if this is true, then I want this class to be removed. So nav list dot class list dot remove. What should be removed? Well, the phone, the nav phone inactive. But this is not all. I'm not finished. I also want to add another class. I'm going to copy this, and instead of remove, I'm going to type in add a class of active. I'm just going to clear this one up. So I'm going to click now on a navigation, and let me leave this object in so you can see it when the click actually happens. So let's hit refresh. Going to click on it, object. Now I'm going to click on element, and now I'm going to inspect more. The header, in the body, the navigation, the UL has no longer the class of phone inactive. It has a class of nav phone active. Okay, if I hit refresh and look to it again, go down here. Now it has the class of phone inactive. If I click on this icon, it just changed to active. Now what do I want to do with this inactive and active classes? Let's go into our CSS and let's go down here at our navigation. And let's say the class of phone nav dash phone underscore active should do the following. It should have a transition all 0.3 seconds, and ease, any box shadow of 0, 0, 55 pixels and 30 pixels, any RGBA of, let's say, I wanted green color, so 7, 171 and 144. Okay, so let's see. Yo, it's already working. Nav phone active is active. If I hit refresh, then it no longer has that class. If I click on it, that class will be assigned, and that class is now giving the navigation these properties. Now, what's with our nav phone inactive? Well, I actually want to hide it. So let's take that nav phone, and I'm going to change this to inactive. I'm going to give it a box shadow of none. None. Let's hit save. And I'm also going to hide it. So let's actually refresh this. So it has no box shadow. And now let's type in transform, translate on the x-axis to -100%. So if I hit save, hey, it's gone. If I click on this, it appears. Now I can't do anything else because it just has this class now, and I can't change it back. Or can I? Now let's go back to our navigation. Let's make this smaller again. Okay, so we just created a statement which said if the navigation has in its class list a phone inactive, then console log object, we don't need this anymore, then remove that class and add a new class. Okay, but what if it doesn't have? So else, because after we click on it, it no longer has the class inactive. So else, if it doesn't have that class, then the nav list, class list, should add the nav phone inactive class. So let's take this, copy it in. Now let's check it out. So if I click on this, in this moment, the class of inactive is, let's also see it, is navigation UL. Let me make this smaller, and let me also make this larger. So at this moment, the UL has the class of nav phone inactive. If I click on the button, this class will be removed and it will be replaced with an active. And we said if this has this class, the navigation, then remove it and edit a class of active. But now it has the class of active, so it does not have the class of inactive. So if I click on it again, it will go in the next line of code, which says else if it does not have the class of inactive, then add it to it. So if I click on this again, it will add the class of nav inactive and remove the class of active. So I'm going to copy this, paste it in here, and remove our class of inactive. So let's try this. Click on it, nav. Oh, let me also show you the navigation. So if I click on it, phone active. If I click on it again, phone inactive. And that's the way the cookie crumbles. But we're still missing something. We're missing that X. And it's actually pretty awesome. You could also insert icons here. So that icon tag was only a class, wasn't it? The icon is already in here in the button. And if I would just replace this class with a times, hey, what just happened? I just modified the DOM itself. But if I hit on refresh, that bar is gone. And if I click on it again, it doesn't appear anymore. So we can do this using JavaScript. Now I'm going to go down after our if statement, actually up here. Or should I do it down here? Let's do it down here. It's much clearer for you. So we create another const. We're going to call this toggle. Sorry, let me make this smaller. So toggle nav btn. Now we're going to go into our document. We want to select that icon. So query selector dot document query selector again. From our nav ID, actually from our ID of btn nav dash btn, we are going to select the icon tag. And let's also console log it. So let's see if we selected it correctly. I'm going to copy this into our console log. So if I would go now back to our console, make this larger, click on the icon, then yep, we selected it. Okay, now that we have it selected, I'm going to comment out this console and create another if statement. If, also open up in close curly braces, in camel case, not curly braces, what am I talking about? So if this toggle btn, if this button, again, class list, again, contains the class of fa-bars, then the toggle btn class list should remove that class of fa-bars. And another class should be added, which name will be times. Okay, so let's try this out. If I click on it, the bars is removed and times is added. Now, exactly as we did up here, we're going to type in an else. I'm going to copy this, paste it in here. We're going to remove now the times and add our bars. Okay, let's try this out. Click on it, navigation opens, times is added, bars is removed. Click on it again, those are added and removed. Okay, pretty simple. Now we're still missing something. I don't like how this function is actually functioning. So when it's inactive, I also want to have a transition of 3 seconds. Okay, there we go. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this video. As I said, do not fear. JavaScript is pretty easy. It can be also much more complexer than this, but don't worry about it. Okay, so hope you enjoyed this video. See you in the next one. It's time to continue on with our menu section. And for this, we're going to first of all need to create it in our HTML. But first of all, let me move this down again. I don't like this how this looks, so you should go down there. Let's make this smaller, and I actually can decrease its size a bit. Why are you so large? Why? So go back here and 100%, 120%. I think this one is too large. So we're back into our form format, and we can now start typing in our main section, which will contain our menu section. So let's go underneath our header, we'll create a main tag. And this main tag will first of all have a section tag with the ID of menu. What is this at? I don't want this at to be in there. Okay, the section will contain another section with the idea of menus. And it will also have a class of menu section. Now let's give this section a title, a h2, with a class of text. And we're going to use now our utility classes, so underscore sub and title. And within here, we'll have a text of menu. And after the text of menu, we'll have a span tag. And the span tag will contain of the week. Now, after our title, we'll create a div, a container, which will contain our menus. So let's call it class of menu container. And this will contain different menus. First, we read the breakfast container. So let's give this a class of breakfast and container. This will have a aside tag, and we'll give this the title of breakfast. Fast. After our aside tag, we'll create an unordered list with the class of breakfast. And this will contain list items with week, weekdays, then another li with the time, so it will be between 7 o'clock and 10 o'clock. I think I used AM and PM. Yeah, I'm going to use AM and PM. Or should I use them? Oh, whatever. You can use them. If not, you can use them later times. Okay, then another li with breakfast of the champions. And then another span tag for the price, $9.99. Because these are dollars, I should put it actually here. Okay. Then we have another li with what it contains. So 2 eggs. Then where's the hyphen? There it is. Then 2 bacon. Bacon. One cup of coffee. And so far and so on. Wait a second, we're missing an E, coffee. And of course we'll have a second type of breakfast, which will all you need for the day. And within the span tags, this will have another price of, let's say, $8.99. Okay, let's go down here. After this li tag, we need to repeat what we did up here, so it will contain, I'm actually going to copy this, 2 loaves of bread, 1 butter, and marmalade, and let's also say it contains 1 cup of tea. Okay. Now I'm going to copy this 2 more times. Obviously you could do much more than this, but I just want, so the container, the breakfast container, which ends, click on this div, which ends here. Going to copy this 2 more times, okay? Now we'll need, so this was our breakfast, then we have our lunch. So everywhere where's lunch and just breakfast, we're going to replace it with lunch. Damn it, I didn't select them. So this. Lunch. We're missing an N. Weekdays, they should be between 12 and 2 a.m. and that's p.m. again. Oh man. So 12 and 14. I'm going to take out a.m. and whatever. You can type in here whatever you want. Just think about some kind of lunches, and then we will have dinner. So let's change this to dinner. And let's just change the time, be 18 and 20. Okay, so that's it for this 3. And this should be now right here. So let's start styling our menus now. First of all, let's grab onto the menu section. Actually, first of all, let's create a comment. So this will be menu section. And let's copy this and also end it. Okay, within our menus, within our comments, let's grab onto the menu section for the class menu section. And I just want to give it a padding from top and bottom of 2 rem. So heading 2 rem top and bottom, 0 left and right. Now within our menu section, I'm going to grab onto the title, so the H2. Copy this, the H2. And I'm going to give it a width of 300 pixels. So this one right here. Menu of the week, we are missing, oh yeah. So let's give it a max width of, or just a width of 300 pixels. Margin auto. Hit save. Let's check this out. Okay, so it's in the center of the page. And I also want to give it a margin to the bottom, but let me just think about it. I think I'm going to do something else. We will have a lot of H2s. And they actually should have, let me check out our titles up here. So where we had our classes, let's see. Text subtitle. There we go. Margin all around top and bottom free rem. Now I don't see this having a free rem margin to the bottom. Why is that? Left and right. Why doesn't it have a margin to the bottom? Strange. Let's go down here. Let's add then a margin to the bottom, that is, of 2 rem. Okay, now let's check it out. Okay, there we go. Now we have a bit of a margin. Okay, now let's take care of the span tag within it. So I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to target the span tag within our H2. I'm just going to change its color to the secondary text color. There we go. And also deselect the selector. Okay. Now let's take a menu container. So menu container, not section. I want to do a couple of things. First, I want to position it relative and then style it a bit. So position relative, because we will position a few things absolute within it. Then margin from the top, let's push it down a bit of 2 rem. We're going to also limit its max width to 350 pixels. We're going to give it borders all around. Borders, not box shadow. What are you doing? Border. all around of 1 pixel solid, and we're going to use our primary icon or primary color again. Okay, so there is our border. Now if I'm using our margin auto, this will push our container into the center of the page, because it's positioned relative. This is very important. If I comment this one out, can have, oh yeah, because we also gave it the max width. Now let's comment this back in, and let's display it as not inline but flex. Flex because all of the items that are within this want to be in a flex direction of column. So flex direction of column. They are in a column all the way because they're in divs, but I do want to be able to modify them, and you will see later on how I do that. Now we're going to take those three classes, so the breakfast, lunch, and the dinner classes that we created. So let's go back to HTML. Actually, I'm going to just copy one of them. So dinner, back into our CSS. Let's target this and comma and copy it 3 more times. And we don't need you. Okay, so first was breakfast. So let's go and replace you, breakfast, then lunch, and the last one was dinner. Now all 3 of them will have a positioning of relative. And now we're going to display them as grid. Display. What am I doing? What am I doing? So display as grid. And when displaying them as grid, because if we take a look in our final project, down here you will see the aside is actually on the left side, and the container itself is on the right side. Okay, so let's go back. And this means that we just need 2 columns. Now we display them as grid, so let's also give them a grid template column of 60 pixels and 290 pixels. And this is just the result of 350 pixels, so exactly as the max width. Now let's change the font size to a font size small. What am I doing? Okay, so font size, so we don't need you, and we don't need you. And you should be down here, and you should have more space. So font size of SM, which is this one. Now for the colors, we're going to go with secondary text color. And I'm going to give them a border to the bottom of 5 pixel solid and black. And this is in order to achieve, let me just show you quickly, to achieve this right here. Now let's also increase the letter spacing, and we're done with the containers themselves. Now let's style the menu container aside. So I'm going to type another comment, menu container, and we're going to style the aside tag within it. Now as you saw in our finished project, this is rotated with 90 degrees. So let's go in here and let's say transform, rotate. I'm going to rotate it with minus 90 degrees. As soon as I hit save, the text should be rotated, and it's outside, but don't worry about it. We're going to push it back in. And we'll display this as flex. And we'll justify the content to the center. Align the items to the center. Hit save, and there we go. Our text is now in the center of the page. Now a couple of things. I want to also have a increase of its font size to the MD font size, and I also want to change the font family to the title font family. So title font family, and there we go. So this is looking pretty good. Okay, now we're going to select the elements within them, so the LIs, and we're going to do something like menu container, the LIs, and we're not going to select all of them, but we're going to select using env-child. We're going to select the odds. So we don't want to change all of them, but only the odds. We're going to change their colors to the primary color. And we're also going to give them a margin from the top of 0.5 rem. And check it out what this will do. So only change this ones, and also the next one will have a margin from the top. Okay, now let's take the menu container again. I don't need this comma. And within here, we're going to select the li and the span from the li. And this was the price. So we're going to select this, change its color to the secondary text color. All right. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this section. So see you in the next one. In this video, we're going to continue on with our orders section this time. So right after our last section, but still remaining within our menu, we're going to create another section tag. And we're going to give this the ID of orders. Now within this section, we're going to create cards. Oh yeah, and I also want to give the section the class of orders section. Okay, so as I said, we're going to create cards, but first of all, let's give this a title. So a h2, the class of text subtitle, and we'll have here order, and also let's include within this a span. Actually, after this, let me do it this way. Order span, and the span should have a now within it. Okay. Hey, this didn't work. Don't worry. Span, and let's cut this out and paste it in. Yo, there's our title. So we have our orders now down here, or order now. Now after this, we will start out with our containers, our card containers. Let's create a div, card container, cards, multiple, plural. And this will contain our cards. Now, our cards will also have a ID, or the card body at least, the ID of slide. And we'll need this ID later on in our JavaScript. So let's create a ID of slide and a class of card body. Within our card body, we'll have a title, so h4, and this will have a class of card title, and this will have a title of King Burger. After our title, we have a small description, so a paragraph tag with a class of card description. And within here, we have a lorem ipsum. So lorem ipsum. Hope this is not too long. And after our description, we'll have just a div and the class of break. After this class, we'll just leave it empty. We'll see why. After this class, we'll have our price. So let's type in another div with the class of card price. And within here, we will have a $15.99. I also want to have $1. $99 and enter. Then we will need this. Let's go to our finished project. And down to the orders, we'll need this input, this label, and then this button, okay? And this is the break tag up here. And later on, we'll also insert these buttons. So we have a card price, which is, hit save. Okay, there's our price. Now we need the input, and for this I'm going to create a general container for this. So input, oops, don't want the caps lock, input container, because the input container will contain also the input tag, which will have a type of number and a ID of amount. But I will also give it a placeholder of 0, so just to signify that this starts at 0, so there's nothing in it. And after our input, we'll have a label tag. Of course, this will be for the amount, and we'll also have here the title of amount. Okay, now after our container, we can now create our button. So button tag, and of course class of btn, and another class of btn order, which will then have a text within it of add to order, and enter, and there we go. So this is our first card. Now all we need to do is copy this card and create, let's say it ends down here. So let me take this and copy it a few more times. It doesn't matter how many times. I don't know how many copies I made. Ooh, yeah, whatever. So we will have different cards. So just to see what difference between them is, I'm going to make here just a couple of changes. This would be 13. I'm going to take this out, and this out, and this out, and here I'm going to take this entire part out. I'm going to change this to 11. Okay, so we're having our cards around here, 15, 15, 15. I think I made too many copies. Woo! Card, we're going to delete you, and we're going to delete you. No, this one is good. Going to delete you. Woo! This good, yeah. So it doesn't matter how many copies you made. I just want to show you how you can manage them later on. Going to delete you. Okay. There are copies. 4. Perfect. 11. Let's change this to 12. No, let's make it smart. So this will be 10. This will be 11. So no, 1, 2, 11. This will be 12. And this will be 13, the last one. Okay, so we know we have, it starts at 0, 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Now we still need to do the buttons, but I'm going to leave them for the next video because we need to include them JavaScript. So let's go ahead and style them. Let's go down here, create in our style sheet another comment of orders or orders section. And also let's close it up. Now let's get into and style them. First of all, let's take care of our header up here. And the only thing I want to do is change that now to a white color. So let's go ahead, orders, section, within this the H2, and within the H2 I want the span tag, and I want the color to be changed to secondary color. So secondary color, hit save, and there we go. Now let's grab onto the class of cards, so plural container, and let's position it relative. Next up, we're going to take the card body class, card body. Okay, we want to make it first of all smaller, so let's add a width. Let's limit it to a width of 280 pixels. Now let's change its background color. to a primary background color. So prime and BG. Okay, so we can difference them from the rest of them. Difference the card from the background. Let's also change its border radius to 10 pixel. And let's give it a margin, a all-around margin of 0.5 rem, top and bottom, and left and right auto. Now I also wanted to have an all-around padding of 1 rem, so within it, and there we go, there's our card body. Now a really quick thing here. When we're going to, let's go to our finished project, so I'm going to explain it. So you see when I click on the button, the next card will appear, but it also has a bit of an animation. It has this fade animation, okay? And this fade animation is actually in the entire body. So I'm going to type in here the animation using animation keyword, and it will be an animation called fade. Okay, it will take 0.5 seconds and it will have an ease out effect. Now this animation would only happen when we're changing the cards. So although I'm going to create it down here, okay, let's create our keyframes, fade. It will not have an effect till we do the JavaScript part. So this is going to go from a opacity of 0.4, so not 0, completely 0, to a opacity of 1. Okay, and this is all. Now I need to hit refresh in order to see this. It's not working, only when this appears, so we need to wait until we have our JavaScript done. But we have our animation and we have it included in here. And hey, you should be 0.4. What are you doing? Okay, you can see them having just a bit of a fade animation when we refresh. Okay, now let's go back and continue styling our card. So we were finished with the card body. Now we need to style our card title. So let's grab onto the class of card title. And we're just going to take them in order. So title, description, price, inputs, and button. Okay. So card title. But there's not much for the card title. We just want to change its color first of all. Not columns, color. To a color of primary color. Then I'm going to increase this font size to a medium font size. And I'm going to give it a margin from the bottom of 1 rem in order to push down the next item. Okay, and there's a title. Now for the description, so card description, I'm just going to give it a margin from the bottom, 1 rem. So each item will push the next item down a bit. Okay, so now for our break class, first of all, I'm going to give it a width, 100%. Then a height of 1 pixel. You could obviously do more. I'm going to push down with it, with the margin to the bottom. Of 1 rem. And let's see. And I'm going to give it a background color of our primary color. And there we go, there's our break line. Now, if we take a look at our finished project, you can see that the line is actually pulsating a bit. And this is just a small animation that I did within here. So let's go down here. Let's create a keyframes. So keyframes, and let's give it the name of line animation. And this is going to go from a background color of primary text color with the opacity of 0.4 to a background color of primary text color again, and the opacity of 1. So as soon as I hit save, I need to include it. Nothing happens. So animation, go back into our break, animation, and line animation. For the name, it's going to take 2 seconds. It's going to be linear, and it's going to be infinite. Okay, so as soon as I hit save, you'll see it's pulsating there. Now, what you can do is actually take out this color right here. No longer need it. I comment it out or completely take it out if you want. I'm going to leave it in because you will need it in your finished project. Okay, and also without this color within here, the animation is still running. Okay, next up, let's take care of the price. So the card price, class of card price. Let's change this color to primary color. Not primary, it doesn't matter. Primary icon color, primary text color. Okay, let's give it a margin from the bottom of 2 rem this time. And let's increase its font size to a MD font size. Say medium. Now we still need the input and the labels. So first of all, I'm going to take the card body, the class of card body, within here, the input, the class of input container. Input dash container, and this is where both of the inputs and the labels are in. And I'm going to display them as block, because later on, if we don't have this displayed as block, they're going to flex if we leave the font format. And we don't want them. We want to block them, well, by displaying them as block. Okay, I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to target within our input container or input. And if you don't already know this, you can also target types. So within brackets, we're going to target the type which is equal to the type of numbers. Number. There we go. Okay. Now it's only targeting the input with the type of number. Okay, so let's style this. I'm going to first of all increase its width to, or decrease its width to 50 pixels. That was far too large. Then I'm going to give this a few margins. So margin, I'm going to go with 1, with a 0 from the top, 1 to the left, 1 to the bottom, and 0 from the right. Now let's change its background color to a dark color. So let's go BG and dark color. The color of the text that we are going to type in it, color is going to be the secondary color. Let's take out the outline, so outline none. Let's give it a border radius of 5 pixels. A text align to the center, and a padding, a all-around padding of 0.5 rem. Okay, and I think this looks pretty good. Actually, this is okay, the orders is okay. I think we can stop here and then take care of the functionality. So I'm gonna make all of them disappear, and by using JavaScript magic, we're gonna make them appear again. So see you in the next video. Bye bye. In this video, we're going to create and style our contact section of the page. So right after our last section, and still remaining within our main, we'll create another section tag. We're going to give this the ID of contact. Okay, let's create our title, h2, with the class of text. Subtitle. Within here, we're going to have a contact. And after that, we're going to include a span with a us, and that's basically it. Okay, so let's take a look at our section. There's a title. I still need here a space, so let's do this. Okay, contact us. Now after our title, we're going to create the contact container. So div contact dash container. First things first, we're going to have a div with a class of phone. Within here, we're going to have an icon tag with a font awesome class, so FAS and FA-phone. And also the icon class. After you do this, and we're outside our icon. Okay, so don't forget to go outside our icon. Let's type in here phone number, something. Hit save, and there we go. There's our icon and there's our phone number. Next, we'll create a address class. Within our address class, let me go up here. So within our address class, we're going to create now another icon with a FAS, FA hyphen map, and the class of icon. And after that, we'll have some street, some kind of number, some kind of postal code, the city, and some kind of district, DFA, something. Okay, next up we'll have our email address. So let's create the class of mail. Within here, icon tag with the FAS, sorry about that, FA envelope, and icon. And after this, there's a plus sign, info at to-go.com. I'm sorry, not .com. What am I doing here? So there, this is ending right here, and this should be info dot some kind of mail.com. What am I doing? Okay, that's much better. Okay, we got our email address for it. Now we need some social media tags. So after this div right here, after contact container, but still remaining within our contact container, after this div, we're going to create now another div of social. Okay, this will have first of all a title, so a h4 of follow us. And now we'll create a icon tag FAB, FA, Facebook, dot icon, and we're going to multiply everything times 4. So we'll have 4 icon classes, and we replace this with Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest. Pinterest. Okay, and we should have everything set up. Now we have a contact container done. After a contact container, we need to create a form. So let's create a form tag. For the action, we're going to use a star. So when we are submitting this form, it's just going to refresh the page instead of submitting it somewhere. So let's give it also a class of contact form. And within our contact form, we need to populate our form now. Now I'm going to use again the classes of input container. So input container for both label and input tags. This I'm going to start up with a label. Don't need to mention for what it is, but we do need to type in first name And let's do a input with a type of text and a placeholder of your name. Name and dot dot dot. And the last thing I want to do is to make it as required. Now, as soon as we type in required, this will make this input field, this input field mandatory. If we try to submit the form would not go further as long as this field does not contain a name or something, or some kind of text. Now, there is much more complicated ways of validating form. We're not going to go into this right now because we do need JavaScript for that, and it can get a bit complicated. Okay, so let's continue on. We have our first input container. Let's go on to our next one, which will be the last name. So I could just copy this. Let's save some typing time. Instead of first name, last name, and your name, so last name. Okay, so we have two input fields. Now comes the next input field, which actually I can copy this, and this will be the label for the selector. So this will be customer from, and now we can select. So we're not going to use an input, but we're going to use a select tag. I'm going to give this a name of customer and also a ID of customer. Now within our select tags, we're going to use now option tags. The first value for our first option will be restaurant. And also within here, restaurant. Okay, so let's just copy this. Whoa, I just gone a bit too far. Hey, I did it again. Okay, let me make it smaller. So restaurant, and this will be select both of them and to go. Okay, so we have our two options down here, restaurant and to go. And the last thing we need is our text. So this text area right here, a label and a text area. Okay, now we're going to go outside our input container, create another input container. And within here, we're going to create first of all a label with subject, not here. And then a text area. And all that I need is just I need a name, don't need an ID. You can leave the columns and rows as they are. I want to have a placeholder of write something. Okay, let's hit save. Now there's a text area right there. And I'm also going to set this as required. So you need to type in a text message in order to move on with your submission. Okay, and down here we're going to create now a button. And this button will actually have a type of submit. Also a value of submit. A class of btn, and right within here we're going to type in submit. Okay, that's pretty much it. So if I would want to submit our form, I cannot do this until I type something in here, submit again, doesn't work, type something in here, submit again, need to type in a message, type in the message, submit, and our form refreshes. Now let's open up our menu and click on the contact, and this will go down to the contact section. Our menu is also working, our navigation. Okay, let's close up the navigation. Now we still need to do a lot of styling for this. So let's go into our CSS into a style now. Let's also close up that main.js U. Now let's type in here comment of contact. And also let me copy this and contact end. Okay, let's start styling it. Let's first of all go up here. So a couple of things. I want to select my contact ID within this, the H2, and within it the span. And let's change the second, so the second word right here of us to a color of secondary color. Let's go down here. Let's select our container, contact container. And give it a all-around padding of 1 rem. Now within our contact container, I'm going to select all of our icon tags, contact container icon tags. I'm going to give them a margin from the right of 1 rem. This will just create a bit of a margin between the icons and the rest of the text, and also down here. Now within our class of contact container, I'm going to select the social class now. So social. Now I'm going to display it as flex and align the items to the center. Okay, so we will have now our follow us and our items here, right, one after another. Now I want to take this title right here, follow us, and give it a bit of a margin to the right side. So let's grab onto the contact container, within here the social class, and within the social class the H4, and let's give it a margin to the right of 1 rem. Okay, now let's select all of our divs within the contact container. So contact class of contact container, and we're going to select all of our divs. And now I'm going to give each div a margin to the bottom of 1 rem. Now what this will do is give each of them a 1 rem margin to the bottom. So push everything out nice and smoothly. Okay, next up we're going to take care of our form. So contact form, and first we're going to limit our form with its width. So width 340 pixels and margins left and right auto. Okay, this is going to push the form a bit to the right. Now let's take care of all of our inputs. So each class of input, why am I still typing in comma? Input and container. Should be displayed as flex. The flex direction should be a column, and it should have a margin to the bottom of 1 rem. Okay, let's take a look at this. Yay! Perfect. Now I want to also style a bit our labels, so let's take this input container again, and within this input container we're going to target now the labels. Labels. What am I doing? Okay, now I'm going to delete this, and actually we want to do here a margin to the bottom of 0.5 rem and color of primary color. Okay, let's go down. There we go. Now I'm going to do a general style to the input, the select, and the text area. So within our contact form or input, and I'm going to copy this line, comma, paste, comma again. This would be the select tag, and the last one is the text area tag. I don't need here a comma. but we do need up here a comma. Okay, each of them will have a height of 30 pixels. We're going to take out the borders, so borders none. We're going to take out the outline, outline none. We're going to give them a border radius of 5 pixels and a padding to the left of 2 rem. Okay, so let's hit save and let's, oh wait, 0.5 rem, sorry about that, 0.5 rem. Let's hit save and check it out. Okay, so all our input tags and also the text area. Hey, let me just quickly change the height of the text area. Back to my HTML and rows. Let's say 50. Or was it columns? Columns, rows? Oh, actually, they should be much larger. Ah, there we go. Now, the last thing we need to do is to style our submit button right here. So let's go back into style and select from our contact class of contact form the button with the type of submit. Okay, now I'm going to give this a width of 100% in order to stretch it completely in our container. But I'm going to modify two things, and one will be the border radius. So border radius, not going to be, I think it was 5 rem. Now I'm going to modify it to 5 pixels in order to have the same, well, the same styling as we have up here. And the last thing I want to do to this is to have a margin to the bottom of 2 rem. Okay, because down here we will have our footer section. So this is it for our context section. See you in the next video. Welcome back. In this video, we're going to style our footer section. Now, this is actually going to be a short video. There's not much to style in our footer. So let's get into it. Let's go first of all to our HTML. And for the footer, we're going to step outside our main section. So let's create here a footer tag. Within the footer tag, and just create 2 paragraph tags. So this times 2. In our first paragraph tag, we're going to have a 2080 and a copy, ampersand copy, then Manhart Media, a break tag, actually a bold tag, not a break tag, so bold, oh come on, bold tag, open and close bold tag actually. And I'm going to have here pipe, a little bit of space, then a 2, go, all rights reserved. And in our second paragraph tag, we're going to have first of all one anchor tag, which will go nowhere. Let's just refresh. Then impressions. They just misspelled impressions. Okay, let me just fix this. Quick fix, impressions. There we go. Impressions, then a hyphen, another anchor tag, goes nowhere. Personal data. Space, hyphen, and another anchor tag with just a hash and cookie settings. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the footer for HTML. Now let's go back. Now let's go to our CSS. Make your comment, footer, copy it, and end. As I said, there's not much to style here, but I did want to have these 2 videos separated. So footer, I'm going to give it a border to the bottom, actually border to the top, to have a bit of a separation border and top to have a bit, oh my god, I just typed in border color. So border top to have a bit of a separation between the end of the context section and where the footer starts. So border top, 1 pixel, solid, and our primary color. Now let's also change the color of the text that is in the footer to a primary color. Let's give it a all-around padding of 1 rem. I have a bit more space within here. Now I'm going to display everything as grid. Display grid. I'm going to use a grid template column of 1fr and text align center. Okay, that's it. Hey, center. And that's pretty much it for this part. Now the last thing I want to do is to grab onto all of them, actually this bold tag right here where our pipe is, and the anchor tag. So within our footer, I'm going to grab onto within the paragraph tag of the bold tag, and within our footer, I'm going to grab on within the paragraph tag of the anchor tag, and both of them will have the color of the variable secondary color. Okay, hit save, and there we go. So that's pretty much it for the footer, and this is also it for our mobile device. Next up will be tablet and then desktop. So let's quickly check out what we just did. Now our navigation is working. We can click it, this turns into an X, then it turns into bars. We can navigate all over the place. Okay, the icons don't do much, but let's go in here. So let's go to our menu. Okay, menu looking good. Let's go to our orders. Also, the slider is working. Also, the color back there is changing. That opacity takes effect. Now, contact, we cannot submit this until we fill out all of our fields. And hit submit, and that's it. Okay, so hope you enjoyed this part. Next up is going to be the tablet. So, see you in the next one. Now that we are done with our mobile first approach, it's time to go to a tablet format. So let me make this a bit larger and also change it to a tablet. Okay, iPad. Oh, we can actually decrease the size. Let me go with 100%. Let's see. Oh yeah, this is perfect. So we are in the tablet format. Now let's go down here. First of all, let's type in a capitalized comment of responsive. Okay, and the first thing will be tablet. Now let's select our first media query. So at media, screen, and a min width of 700 pixels. Not PCs, pixels. Okay, the first two things that we're going to focus on is the header and then the navigation. Okay, within the header, the first thing that pops out is, well, our title. So let's go to the class of overlay, select our H1, and let's increase our font size to a much larger font size. But if we take a look up here in here, did you notice that we have 400 lines of CSS? Woo! And it's going to be some kind of 800 at the end, if I remember correctly. So let's go up here. Let's go. There's a header and overlay and the H1. Well, the H1 already had that class of title, and the class of title, take a look in our class. The class of title has the font family of title, the font size of title, and the font size of title. Font size of title is 3.5 rem. Now I want to increase this, but we have no more variables. So what can we do? Well, we can take that initial font size and we can increase it by using the calc functionality. This var that we are constantly using, var, is actually a function, a built-in function. Now I'm going to take this var, actually paste it in here. I'm going to tell it, hey, we're going to use the font size of XL. Going to step outside and now multiply it with 2.8. And as soon as I do this, it actually performs a calculation. It calculates this size and it multiplies it with 2.8. And there's our font size for our tablet format. Okay, so this is pretty nifty functionality in CSS. Okay, next up, let's take the class of overlay and within it, the btn class. Now let's push it further down by using margin top of 10 rem. Okay, and let's change its font size to a MD font size. And also let's give it an increase of padding. Let's say 1 rem top and bottom, 1.5 rem left and right. Okay, now that's pretty much it for a header. Now for our navigation, let's push the navigation down with 1 rem. So let's go in here, let's select our navigation class, and let's just give it a margin from the top of 1 rem. Okay, this would just push down the navigation a bit. Not margin, padding. I wanted to give it a padding. Sorry about that. Padding, there we go. Okay, so it's still there, but it's pushed down a bit. Now, next thing, I'm going to take the navigation social icons. So let's go into our navigation. So this right here. I'm going to push them down a bit. So navigation, where are the navigation social? Let's give them a margin from the top of 55 viewport heights. As soon as I do this, they're going to be pushed down to the bottom of the page. Now the last thing I want to do is actually increase the font size of the nav links. So let's grab onto them. Nav links, font size. And I'm still undecided because if I go with the XL font size, it's a bit too large. Nah, it's actually perfect. But we could also do something like select this, not the entire word, just this, put it into oh damn it, didn't want to do that. Put it into parentheses, use the calc again, calc, and we could divide it also. So let's divide it by 1.1. Okay, and you can play around with this. 1.2. I know this. Yeah, I think I like it. Okay, so let's leave it as it is. And also, that's pretty much it for this video. See you in the next up, we're going to take care of our menus and orders in our tablet format. So let's go down here, type in the first comment of menu, and after that we'll have our orders. So let's start with the menu. We're going to select our menu container, and with our menu container we're going to first of all go up here. We're going to change the max width to 650 pixels. Okay, let's go down here, and it's already increased because before this we had it like this, way too small. Okay, 650 pixels, and now we can start increasing. Well, title, I think the title is okay, but I surely want to increase the everything that is in the breakfast container, lunch, and so on and so on. So let's target next up them breakfast container. then lunch container, and dinner container. Now all of them will have, first of all, grid. Let's change the grid template to something else. So grid template column to 1FR and 3FR. And this means that we're going to have one side here and 3/3 here. Okay, let's hit save. You can see everything is now pushed a bit to the right because this occupies now one fraction and this occupies 3 fractions of this container. Let's increase their font size. So font size to a MD font size. Let's hit save and hey, that's much better. Now it's actually readable. Okay, now let's go and take care of the menu container and within it the aside. And we're also going to use here a font size of calc. We're going to calculate the font size. We're going to take the MD font size and let's multiply it. MD. Why didn't you use the variable? So var MD. Now it's working. Now multiply it by 1.3. Again, you can play around with this. I think 1.4, 1.6, no good. 1.5 because this is trying to push this to the side. Okay, that's perfectly aligned. Okay, 1.5 is for now perfect for me, but for you it could be something else. Actually, let's see what happens if I increase the letter spacing. So let's see if I increase it to 2 pixels. That's a bit too much for the padding here. So let's decrease this to 4. Yo, much better. So I want it to be readable, large enough and enough space between the letters. Okay, that's pretty much it for the aside. Let's now take care of our UL. So menu, container, and within this the unordered list. So this list right here. This is a bit smushed together, and also I want to change the background color. So background color of primary BG. So primary BG color. Okay, so now we have a difference between this part and this part. In order to have just a bit more differentiation, we're going to also use a padding of 1 rem all over. Okay, perfect. Now next up, we're going to take care of our orders. So let's go down here to our next comment, orders. First, let's increase our card body. So class card body, we're going to change its width to 600 pixels. Next, we're going to change the card title and also the card price. And both of them should have a font size of XL. Okay, now that we're done with this, we can now grab onto the card description and change its font size to a MD. Hey, first of all, font size, and now MD, medium font size. Okay, now we're done with this, and now we can grab onto our input. So input container, within this our input tag, and this tag had a type of number. I'm just going to change its width to 60 pixels. Let's have just a bit more width within there, and also its font size to a MD font size, a medium font size. Okay, great. Now let me actually try something like 80 because I don't like this. Okay, next up we're going to target a couple of things. We're going to target the class of input container, then within this also the label actually, then the class of btn order, then the class of previous, and the class of next. So we're targeting a couple of buttons and a label tag. And let's increase their font size, so font size to a MD font size. Okay, that's pretty simple. Now let me also give a bit of a padding or a margin to the bottom of this button order. So let me select the button order and give it a margin to the bottom, not the top, bottom of 1.5 rem in order to push that just a bit further down. Okay, so saying this has much more space now. Now the last things I want to do is first of all move these two buttons more like in the center right here and here. So we're going to target the previous class first of all, going to move it to the left with 20 pixels, and then our next class, and this one we're going to move to the right with 20 pixels. Okay, let's hit save, and this should be now perfectly aligned to the center here. Okay, the last thing I want to do is take care of our H2 text subtitles. Now all of the H2s that have this text of subtitles, this is why I didn't touch till now that this classes, the subtitles will now increase their size, their font size. So font size, we're going to use our calc again. And within here, we're going to calculate the difference, not the difference, but a Excel font size times a 1.5. So let's see, that's much better. And also let's give them more margin from to the bottom, let's say 4 rem. Okay, so everything is much further pushed down. I would actually say it's not even enough. I'll give them even more, let's say 6 rem. Okay, much better. Okay, so that's pretty much it for, well, for the context, for the menu and the order section. So see you in the next one. Alright, so the last thing we're going to start in our tablet format is the contact and footer section. So let's get started with this. First, let's type in here comment of contact and then footer. Actually, we can put them together. Yeah, because it's only one line of code for the footer. Actually, let me start with it. I'm just going to take the footer tag and change the font size to a MD font size, medium font size. That's pretty much it for the footer. Now for a contact, on the other hand, we have a bit of styling to do. First of all, let's take the ID of contact and let's limit its width to 650 pixels, and also assign the margins auto. Now we can have everything pushed to the center. Now for a contact container, we're going to give it a width of 100%, so we're going to take up the entire width of the contact ID section. I'm going to display everything as flexed. I'm going to change the flex direction to a column. Now nothing would change, but as soon as we justify the contact with space between and align the items to the center, now everything is aligned off perfectly. Now I still need to take out the paddings by giving them padding 0, and also change the font size of the entire container to a medium font size. And then we're done with this part. Now let's take the contact container, and within this our form. So contact form, and let's change it for the form. We're going to go with the width of 640 pixels. So we have 640 pixels. So we have 5 pixels left and right. And let's also give it a margin auto. And the last thing I need to do here is actually tell it to take up the width of 100%. Not only that it should have that, oh wait, because the selector was not this one, but this one. There we go. Okay, but I still need to increase a couple of sizes now for the inputs. And again, I'm going to go into an input container. I'm going to select our input tags. copy this 3 more times, and again select the select, and also select our text area. Now let's increase their height to 40 pixels. And let's increase the font size to a medium font size. And that's it. Now I also want to change the way our button down here looks, our submit button. And for this, we're going to target our contact form again. So within our contact form, the button tag with the type of submit. And it's pretty much simple. And this is pretty simple. We're just going to change the font size to a MD, so a medium font size. And that's pretty much it. Excepting I also want to give it a padding to top and bottom. So padding, top and bottom of say 1 rem and 0 left and right. That's much better. I want to have that huge submit effect. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the tablet format. Let's really quickly go through it. We have our header, we have our menu, we have our orders. They are all still working. We have a contact section, we have a submit form, and we have our navigation, which is also still working. Okay, well, that's pretty much way. Whoa. This is not good. This means that we have to decrease. So where do we have it? Navigation, menu, navigation. Let's say 50 viewport heights. Okay, much better. Ooh, good that I took a last look at this. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this part. Yeah, see you in the next one, the desktop version. So, see you soon. Bye-bye. Okay, so now that we're done with our tablet version of the web page, it's time to move on and also style it for the desktop version. Now for this, I'm going to make this first of all much larger and also go into a responsive mode. Now I think I'm going to leave it somewhere at 1500. Okay, that's enough. Now let's go into our CSS, type in a comment of desktop. And in this video, we're just going to style our header and our navigation. So for this, let's first of all target at media, screen, and a min width of 900 pixels. Now, as I said, first things first, header. The header is pretty simple. We're just going to take our overlay. Oh, no. Overlay class. Overlay, and we're going to target our H1. And let's see, do we need to increase that font size? No, it depends. It depends on what the client says, but I will leave here a option at least of calculating our font size. So let's leave here Excel font size, and this should be in a variable. So I'm going to select this, put into parentheses, and at the start of it I'm going to use the var keyword. Okay, var, now let's see, we can now multiply it, increase its size, let's say 3 times or 3.1 times. And you could just go on until you're satisfied with the result, or at least the client is. Okay, so let's go to our overall overlay btn, our button class, and let's increase this with a font size of XL again. And now that we're in a desktop mode, we could, let me take this out. We could now, deselect. We can now have hover effect. So let's take that btn class. And actually this time I'm going to give a hover effect to all of the btn classes, not only this one in our header, but all of them. And it's just going to be a simple opacity of 0.8. Okay, so if I click on it, if I hover on it, over it, it's going to have a bit of an opacity. Okay, so that's pretty much it for a header. Next up is the navigation. So now that we're done with our header, we can continue on with our navigation. Okay, so let's type in first of all another comment, not a class, but a comment of navigation. Okay, let's also scroll up to have enough space. Now, first of all, we have a little of a problem with this right here. We do not need this anymore. We are in a desktop format. There's no need for the navigation to pop in because up here we should have enough space. So first things first, I'm going to take that nav phone active class. I'm sorry, inactive. And as you can remember, we set a transform on and a translate on the x-axis of minus 100%. And I'm going to set it to 0. And this will push our navigation back. Next thing, I'm going to take this button, so btn-nav, and I'm going to display it as none. We don't need you anymore, Bobo. Goodbye. Also, the social icons down here, we do not need them. So, nav social, right after our nav button, comma, take the nav social, and boom, they're gone. Now let's grab onto the navigation itself. So, class of navigation. We're going to reset the padding from the top to 1 rem. And I'm going to change now the navigation width. So it's going to have a max width of 1440 pixels. So no matter what, the navigation will not be larger than 1440 pixels. Actually, let me even make this smaller. Okay, right up here we can see we are at 1560 approximately pixels width. I'm also going to push the entire navigation from the left 20%. Okay, and now I can justify the content as not start but stretched, which is actually the default value for the navigation items within there. Because as you can remember, we had set our navigation as flex. Okay, now for the box shadow, I'm going to go with 0, 10 pixels, 10 pixels, and -5 pixels, which will give me a box shadow underneath our navigation of a color, primary color. Okay, as you can see, there's a box shadow down there. Okay, now let's take care of our list here. So let's scroll up. Let's target our nav list. Now let's reposition it by positioning it relative instead of absolute. We're going to assign it a height of auto and a width of 100% of its container. Now let's change the flex direction. We initially had the flex direction set to a column, so let's change it back to a row. Okay, and let's also take out all the padding and all the margin that we had set by giving it a 0 padding. Okay, now text alignment should be to the center and center. And why do I still have up here? Maybe I need to set exactly as I did before. So padding left 0 and padding to the top also 0, because these were my initial settings. Okay, now this has something still to do with our list items, so let's also select them. So nav list and within them the items. Okay, now I'm going to take the border from bottom, and take it out. So border none. Let's also take out the padding 0, and also margin 0. And now they slide up. Okay, and I want to give them a transition of 0.3 seconds ease, because when we're going to hover over them, so nav list LIs, let's give them a hover effect. We want to have a change of the background color to the primary color, and this should also have a transition of 0.3 seconds ease. Okay, so let's try this out. So when we hover over our items, why do I still have this selected button? Okay, we hover our items and we have now this nice hover effect. Okay, and that's basically it for the navigation for right now. Let me also check something out. I don't like this margin right here, so let me just take care of it. 20%, let's go with margin auto also. All right, and let's position it relative. Which will now take out the sticky effect. So if I was sticky, no, we need to leave it as fixed, you know, to be scrollable. Okay, so that's pretty much it for our navigation. Next up is the menu and order. So in this video, we're going to style our menu and orders for our desktop version of the web page. So let's type in here the first comment of, why am I still scrolling down? Of menu, and after that we'll style also our order. Now before we get started with our menu, I want to make a quick style to our main. As you can remember, we had a main tag in which we had the entire section after the header and before the footer, let's just say. Now I'm going to give this a max width of 1200 pixels. As soon as I do this, you see everything aligns to the center, and we still need to do a margin auto. So margin auto. Now we have everything in the center of the page. So let's also make it a bit pop out by using a box shadow of 0, 30 pixels, 5 pixels, and our primary color variable, but I'm going to use a RGBA because I want to have that alpha. So RGBA of 171, and you can jump between the red, green, and blue by just tabbing, and 144 and 0.7. Okay, let's hit save, and there are our margins. Now I'm also going to change the box shadow to the bottom to none. Okay, so down here. Now we're done with this part. Let's now target our menu container. And we're also going to set this to have maximum width of 100% of the container in which is in. And you can see it already jumps to the max width of its container. Now let's take our breakfast, lunch, and dinner containers. So breakfast, then the class of lunch. Why do I have this? I didn't want to do this. We just need the comma and the class of lunch. And after that, we need our dinner container. And we'll set all three of them, first of all, to have a font size. Well, let's just see. I think it was MD. Now, let's go with the MD, but I think I'm going to increase it a bit. So let's use our calc. Because if I'm going with an XL, this will be far too large, I believe. XL, well, yeah, it's a bit too large. So let's decrease this to MD. And I don't know if you find this large enough, but I would still suggest to use a calc. Who knows, maybe the client wants something else. So let's just go with, let's just go with times 1.1, so 10%. And let's use the calc keyword right here. So 10%, it's better, I don't know. You can still jump around. I would use 30% at least. Okay, now I still want to increase the aside, so menu container aside. And let's also increase this font size. I'm just going to copy this to let's say 4. Not enough. 1.5. Bit better. Let's go with 1.8. Still not enough. 2. Yeah, that's much better. Okay, and now I would suggest to use a letter spacing of at least 3 pixels. Alright, next up, we're going to take care of our UL list. So menu, container, and within this the UL. And the only thing I want to do here is create a text aligned to the center. Now you can change this if you want, but after much thinking, I think this looks a bit better. I don't know, maybe we can leave it to the left side. I would like to leave it as this. Okay, so that's pretty much it for our menu. Now let's take care of our orders. So we'll be down here, the order section. Now let's grab onto the cart body. Let's give it a width of 600 pixels. I just typed it, just said 600, typed in 900. Okay, and a box shadow of 0, 0, 10 pixels, 1 pixel, and totally black. Okay, so I hope you can see this. I know I can, but there's just a tinge of a shadow down around our container now. It really pops everything out. Okay, next up, let's take care of the card title and price. So card title and card price. And I would suggest to increase the font size to a XL, extra large font size. Okay, now that's pretty much it for this part, for the order now. You could make a few changes if you want to move this further to the center. Okay, so actually let's do this, but I don't think it's relevant. So prev, let's move it left to, I think 100 pixels almost. 150 pixels. 140. Okay. Now I'm also going to copy this, paste it in here, type in next, and this should go right. Okay. Now if you like this more, I will leave it up to you. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this video. So see you in the next one. Bye bye. Hey, we arrived at the final chapter of our food to go page, and this will be the contact and the footer section. So let's type in here contact, and after that footer. Now I do want to make a couple of changes here, especially in our contact section. First things first, we're going to target the ID of contact. Now I'm going to give this a width of 100% of its container, so you know, to stretch completely out, and we're going to display it as grid. And I'm doing this because I want to take this part right here, place it to the left side, this also to the left side, and this entire part to the right side. And we can do this by creating first of all 2 grid columns, so grid template column 1FR and 1FR. We could use repeat 2 times 1fr. Okay, we have our 2 grids now. And for the grid template row, I'm going to place it as auto. So I'm going to create 2 automatic, at least it's going to create automatic rows for me as with a height as is necessary for the container. Now I'm going to use grid template areas. And we're going to use here a title, a form, then a contact, and a form. So exactly as I said, I'm going to place the title here, the contact here, and the form on the right side. Okay. Now I also want to give this a bit of margin from the top, so margin top for rem and padding from the bottom of also for rem. This will give me from top a bit of space and also from the bottom. Okay, next up we need to target our ID of contact, and within this the h2 with the text subtitle class. And now we're going to assign this the grid template area, or the grid area of title. And as soon as I do this, it will now be placed on the left side, and also let's give it a margin to the bottom of 0 and padding 0. So I'm going to take out all of the settings that I had initially for it. Okay, now the contact container, we have the grid area of contact. Okay, as soon as I hit save, now it's on the left side, exactly as we specified it here. I'm going to give this the entire width of its container. I'm going to display it as flex. We'll flex everything into a column direction. Okay. Now let's justify the content with space between to spread it out. And align the items to the center. And let's also increase the font size. So font size MD. Okay, I'm also going to take out the margins from the top 0 and auto left and right. And let me also give this a height of 300 pixels. Okay. Now we still have something bothering us here. Let me just take a look. What is in here? Okay, this has a massive height. I did take out all the margins and all the paddings. Oh, this is still bothering us. Okay, we're gonna take care of this. Okay, let me deselect this. So next up we're going to take care of the social icons down there. So contact container and the class of social. We're going to flex everything. I actually did this flexed, but we're now going to flex them in a column direction. Okay. Now I'm going to copy this, and I want to change the follow us. So this was a H4, and we're going to give this a text align to the center and also some margin to the bottom in order to push the social icons down of, let's say, to rem. And we just second contact container social, the h4 within it. So did I contact? Here's the h4. Okay. Now let's take the icons. So let's target our contact container again. And within our class of social, we're going to target our icons. Now we're going to give them margin from the bottom side, each of them a margin from the bottom of 1 rem. Going to increase the font size to a XL. And I'm going to give them a transition, not a transform, but a transition of 0.3 seconds ease. Because we're going to give them a hover effect. So let's take this class again, and the icons, make a copy of them. Let's type in hover, and we're going to set the cursor as pointer. And when we hover them, we're going to change the color to a secondary color. Secondary, which working var, hyphen, secondary text color. There we go. Okay, and also apply the transition of 0.3 seconds and ease. So let's try this out. When we hover over them, the color is changing, and So next up is our contact form. Let's target this, contact and form. Now for the form, we're going to assign it the grid template area of form. And we're going to give it an all-around padding of 2 rem. And of course, we need to take care of our submit button here. So let's go contact form. Within this, the button, which has the type of submit. And let's change its font size to a medium size font size. All right, so that's pretty much it for this part. Now I want to take care of the footer. So let's go down here. Let's target our footer. Let's display everything as flex. I'm going to flex now in a row direction. I'm going to justify the content now with space evenly. So there's one there and one here. Okay, for the colors, let's change a few colors here. So I'm going to change everything to a secondary color. And also the background color will be primary color. Now the last thing I want to do is to target our footer. And within this, the first paragraph tag. And let's give this a margin to its right of 2 rem. Okay. And as soon as I do this, it's going to be pushed just a bit further to the right. Okay, guys, you're still missing here some kind of padding. So let me just take a look. Contact form, contact container, social, display flex, margin bottom to rem, and this should actually push everything down. Why isn't this working? Should I have it in our contact container? Yeah, there it is. Okay, well, that's pretty much it for the project, actually. Hope you enjoyed this. So let me actually go and make this completely large again. Yo, there's, hey, what are you doing? I need to push you again back to the left. So menu, container, navigation, listing, nav, auto, and you should be here. So finish right there we go. Okay guys, so that's pretty much it for the project. Hope you enjoyed it. Let's just quickly go through it. We can, oh yeah, we should now comment back in our, that's pretty much at the top. Here, let's just first of all take a look at this. 700 something lines of code here, plus your HTML, which is 200 something, plus the 2 JavaScripts, 1000 lines of code. Good job, good job. You should pat yourself on the back. Okay, so let's go through this again. Oh yeah, I wanted to comment in, CSS up. In our general setting, the scroll smoothly behavior. This is the old one. Going to click this one out, and this is our web page now. Home, menu, orders, contact down here. Excellent. Now let's change it up to a tablet format, and you should go now back to the right side. Okay, activate our devices, go to a tablet, go to the menu, home, menu, orders, and contact. Close up this one. Let's check out the carousel. Still working, perfect. And let's also go to a phone format, and then we're done. Woo! Excellent. So once again, hope you enjoyed this project. Many more to come. And yeah, see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.